Ravnica Allegiance is standard legal in less than a week and already promises to be a huge influence on standard. The set is absolutely busted. In this video, I'm going to show you the top 10 best standard cards in Ravnica Allegiance for this upcoming standard format. Many of these are crazy cheap right now, so if you want to purchase any of them for pennies on the dollar, you can click the first link in the description. I do hope you enjoyed the video, and if you do, remember to hit that like button, helps out a lot. I'll begin with honorable mentions as I always do. The first is Theater of Horrors. At first, players thought this would be terrible, then they thought it'd be amazing, and I'm basically in the middle. I think this card is powerful and definitely a reason to go Rakdos. It's cheap, strong, and lets you refuel in your burn deck. It's very good. But since I don't think it's necessary for the Rakdos deck to win, it is an honorable mention. The second honorable mention is Domri Chaos Bringer. New Domri isn't as powerful as old Domri, but he sure does pack a punch. Leading Gruul aggro decks to battle, New Domri is ramp, he's a riot giver, and he comes with a super adventurous impulse or Vivian +1. Whichever way you look at it, Domri's abilities are relevant and powerful, especially considering he's only 4 mana and comes down on a whopping 5 loyalty. Gruul aggro is going to be one of the better decks out of the gate, and Domri is going to get a lot of miles, I guarantee it. On to the list itself. The 10th best standard card in Ravnica Allegiance is Scourge Hellkite. This mythic is actually ridiculous, and there's no reason to ignore it considering the legacy it's succeeding. We've dealt with Thundermaw Hellkite, Thunderbreak Region, Glorybringer, face it. Giant dragons are powerful in standard, and Scourge Hellkite brings along an impactful new mechanic and ability. 5 mana for a 4/4 flyer with haste is exactly what an aggro deck might want at the top of its curve. A 5 mana 5/5 dragon that can fireball 2 damage for 4 mana, even better. This card has late game power, a huge mana sink, and demands an immediate answer if you give it a +1/+1 counter. We've already spoken about Gruul aggro decks. That strategy can fit right into the mid game with cards like this. Expect the Hellkite to see a lot of play, and it's less than $8 right now, just saying. Number 9 is Incubation Incongruity. Incubation is one of the most versatile cards in the set, allowing for either green or blue decks to filter the top of their library for an important creature card. What puts this card on this list is the hybrid blue and green symbol. Incubation can see play in Merfolk, blue tempo decks, Gruul aggro, Temur ramp. Anywhere a green or blue deck has creatures, it's that versatile and excellent tutor spell. And that's only half the card. Incongruity is an exile effect. In this standard, exiling a creature is massively important. Arclight Phoenix, Rekindling Phoenix, anything with Afterlife, Adanto Vanguard. Leaving behind a 3/3 obviously isn't ideal, but it's much better than leaving behind any of these creatures. The combination of creature search and insane removal makes the split card outrageously powerful in new standard. So versatile, nearly any deck that runs these colors will want this card. 40 cents as well, yeah, it's so good. Number 8 is Gruul Spellbreaker. 3 mana for a 4/4 or a 3/3 with haste is quite good already, but that anti-settle the wreckage tech very strong. In a format with an increasing number of instant speed removal, Gruul Spellbreaker halts the control player's tempo and forces their hand on their own turn. And while Addendum also seeks to do this, that mechanic exists as a benefit to control players, not a hindrance. Gruul Spellbreaker not only stops settle, but it stops all targeted removal on the Spellbreaker, and also stops all direct damage against you. Even against burn, this can be useful, making the burn player cast their bolts on their own turn. But that isn't why the Spellbreaker is so good. The Spellbreaker is surrounded by a powerful suite of creatures and spells that make it good. We've already spoken about Scourge Hellkite and Domri, but there are more on this list. Look out for the Spellbreaker and a Gruul-based creature deck, nasty stuff. Coming in at number 7 is Caius Wrath. It's possible this card should be higher on this list, but we'll see as the format develops. With the addition of both Hallowed Fountain and Godless Shrine, Caius Wrath is easier to cast than most might think, giving control decks a 4 mana answer to Crackling Drake, Galta, Registar Alpha, Venerated Loxodon, and a host more creatures. The difference between Caius Wrath on 4 and Cleansing Nova on 5 can mean the game. Now that control has access to Ritual of Soot, but for everything, don't sleep on this card. If a non-Jeskai control deck is going to exist in this standard, it will be running a number of Caius Wrath, because that card folds to almost nothing. There's a reason Wizards stopped printing board wipes at 4 mana, they're too good. Caius Wrath, this card is too good. Breaking into the number 6 spot on this list is Wilderness Reclamation. The scariest thing about this card is that it might deserve to be number 1. Wilderness Reclamation combined with Nexus of Fate may be the most powerful combo in upcoming standard. It is purely on this list because of its interaction with the broken 7 mana Time Walk. This is now the most powerful card in the Bant Nexus deck besides Nexus of Fate itself, and it would be unwise to underestimate this card in battle. When you find yourself against someone playing Wilderness Reclamation, destroy it before they can get Nexus mana online, or prepare to have Nexus cast on your opponent's end step forever. This enchantment is powerful, versatile, and oppressive. The first card in the top 5 most powerful standard cards of Ravnica Allegiance is Growth Chamber Guardian. 2 mana for a 2/2 is obviously nothing to freak out about, about, but imagine this. You play the Guardian on turn 2, untap on turn 3, adapt it, search for another Guardian, swing in for 4. For 4 damage on turn 3. There isn't much in Standard right now that can stop that kind of attack. If you have nothing else to do with your hand besides advance your mana, attack with a 4/4 on turn 3. When was that ever bad? Never. And considering this card is mono green, it doesn't need to fit into a Simic shell. It's fine in Gruul, mono green aggro, even white green Convoke, since you can keep tutoring them up. Huge blocker, huge attacker, gets more of itself. This is a staple 2-mana green creature for the duration of its tenure in Standard. Number 4 is Hydroid Crisis, and if you've seen this card in action yet, you know what I'm talking about. The cast trigger on this Jellyfish Hydra beast is beyond strong. There really isn't a word for it. The Crisis is a gigantic payoff for Teamer ramp decks, Teamer mid-range decks. Every version of Band Control or Sultai Control can run this. Cast this for 6 mana total. You get a 4/4 with Flying Trample, you gain 2 life and draw 2 cards. So you're casting a single spell, gaining life, it replaces itself in your hand, and you gain card advantage. And now you have a giant creature on the battlefield. Against control decks, they can't stop the cast trigger unless they're running the new Stifle. And while they may not care about the creature itself because they can destroy it or counter it, that doesn't stop you from drawing a bunch of cards. Against mid-range or aggro, same thing. You gain life and draw cards, neither of which they can stop. And now they have a big butt to deal with. In the current meta of creature-heavy strategies versus control variants, Hydroid Crisis is in a really good spot, guaranteeing you an immediate payoff for your mana investment. This is the best reason to play Simic right now. Do not ignore this card. Number 3 is Skewer The Critics. It isn't the most exciting card on this list, but we're about to enter a world where Rakdos Burn is running things. As far as new strategies are concerned, Mono Red and Rakdos have both had makeovers, becoming more powerful than they've ever been. These decks are fast and dangerous. Skewer The Critics is Lightning Bolt. Don't let anyone tell you different. Want to know how I know that? Fanatical Firebrand, Viashina, Pyromancer, Goblin Chain Whirler, Spear, Spewer, Shock, Lightning Bolt, Wizard's Lightning, most of the time Gitu Lava Runner. These cards deal immediate damage. They turn Spectacle on, they make Skewer The Critics a Lightning Bolt. It says sorcery on it, but you don't care. Don't let that deter you. Skewer The Critics is one of the best new cards from Ravnica Allegiance, and it isn't the flashiest by any means, but it is beyond what many thought it would be. We're almost to the top. Coming in at number 2 is Rhythm of the Wild. The boar is already out of the bag with this card. The Raiden Shaman is threatening new Standard with a load of strength. Dropping on turn 3, it's very easy for this to curve into multiple Growth Chamber Guardian, Hydroid Crisis, Skargan Hellkite. You can play Gruul Spellbreaker right after this, getting a 4/4 with haste, stacking Riot. That's absurd. Rhythm of the Wild is number 2 on this list because Gruul-based creature decks have more potential in the Standard format than all other deck archetypes besides one. Makes creatures uncounterable, so Settle is literally never going to work if the Spellbreaker's there. Hydroid Crisis gets the cast trigger and it will hit the battlefield, but even without that counter protection, giving non-token creatures Riot is busted. It immediately adapts for you, it gives haste for you. Most importantly, it hamstrings your opponents. It forces them to interact immediately and aggressively with anything you play. If they can't, they'll lose. With Rhythm on the battlefield, you never know what's coming next and you have a small window to answer it. In the evolving meta, Rhythm of the Wild promises to be a powerhouse enchantment, and I wouldn't doubt that for a second. It's only $1 right now too, it's gross. I'm not going to beat around the bush. The most powerful Standard card in Ravnica Allegiance is Judith the Scourge Diva. This card is basically a planeswalker as far as I'm concerned. 3 mana for a 2/2 that anthems your other attackers is already impressive in a red-black deck, but what makes Judith a planeswalker is that second ability. She does 1 damage to any target whenever a non-token creature you control dies. Any target. Judith existing at all has created entire archetypes, many of them in Mardu, looking to use aristocrat synergies to abuse Judith's outrageous trigger. The reason why she's number 1 on this list though, remember when I said Gruul aggro decks had more potential in this Standard format than any other strategy besides one? This is the one. Red-black aggro, or even mono-red aggro splashing black just for Judith. She's absurd. Firebrand, Pyromancer, Steamkin, Chain Whirler, Legion Warboss, and Judith. You know how annoying it is to board wipe when a Midnight Reaper is around? Imagine that with Judith, except she gets to direct damage whatever she wants. It makes board wipes hurt, it puts attacks on removal, and on top of that, she's giving everything +1/+0. I can't accurately describe the true power level of this card. I honestly can't. If you're looking for the single best Standard card out of Ravnica Allegiance, I vehemently believe that Judith is the pick. It's not even close. Ravnica Allegiance promises to be a powerful set in new Standard. All the cards I mentioned today have already proven their worth, and the set isn't even out yet. If you want to see any of the cards I spoke about today or pre-order them for the cheapest prices around, you can click the first link in the description. You will not be disappointed. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. This video is brought to you in part by TCGplayer.com. We spoke about a lot of powerful cards today. Skargan Hellkite is one of them. I think this might be the most overlooked mythic in the set right now, and it's only $8 each. If you're into giant Gruul dragons and want to get your Gruul nonsense started before the set releases, click the link on the screen. It'll help the channel. You'll get some awesome underrated mythics. It's a good time all around. Enjoy!